It was a sea of green in New Orleans this past weekend, and it was a gutsy, had to have it, last punch in a heavyweight fight thrown kind of win. And we'll see if the Eagles can replicate that performance as they get set to hit the road in Tampa Bay. It is the Cat Country 96 Birds recap, brought to you by Miller Lite, the official beer sponsor of the Philadelphia Eagles, and by our friends at Banko Beverage. Visit bankobeverage.com. Sam, what did you think? It was a tough one on Sunday, but the Birds got the win. Just kind of your impressions after the game.
Well, I guess you only need like a half a quarter to start playing football to win in the National Football League now. Side note, I was looking for you in the crowd whenever they would pan to the stands, and I couldn't find you anywhere.
If you looked,
up
there,
that's
where I was. Yes.
Okay.
But I have to say, I was in New Orleans for the game, and all weekend long there was green everywhere. It was Birds everywhere. Actually, it's funny. A couple of the bartenders down on Bourbon Street, as you kind of walk in and out of bars, were like, "Listen, we don't want to say we didn't want the Saints to win, but the Eagles won, and you guys are buying a bunch of drinks and you're doing really well. So go Birds."
Yeah,
so,
that's great. I thought the game, I didn't like the game. I didn't like a lot of the offensive play calling. I didn't like the fact that Barkley had 0 rushing yards. I don't know how many attempts he had in the first quarter. I think 0 rushing the ball. I don't know. And that was my biggest fear when we signed him. I'm like, please use him the way that we need to use him. And they got my email at halftime. I see.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So that worked out the way that they needed it to. I don't like the hits that the Eagles took on a couple key guys. And hey, even the non-key guys got the hits that probably should have been called or something should have been done. I know that the guy that put the hit on Devontae Smith did get a fine by the NFL. I just read about that, but that doesn't help anything. That should have been a 15-yard penalty. And it doesn't help the fact that Devontae can't play this weekend as well. And overall, I think it was a very tough game. I didn't think it would be that tough of a game. The Saints held in it, but the Eagles defense, give them credit for holding that high-powered offense the first 2 weeks to, 3 points for most of the game and only giving up, for the most part, a touchdown. So Eagles defense, I was really impressed with. They needed a game like this. The offense didn't decide to get going. They kept going and then just, 3 steps forward, 5 steps back, 5, 6. It was one of those games, and then finally came all together, with the last couple minutes.
Yeah, it was I used the word gutsy to start this thing out because it felt like that. It felt like an old school game. It was a violent football game. To your point, I think that's a big key for me this week, given the circumstances of the injuries against Tampa Bay with Saquon. This has to be a Saquon Barkley game.
Yeah.
You're going into the bye week, so anybody worried about him getting his touches or too much, you're going into the bye week, but
right.
you got paid to be the primetime guy on the offense in the backfield. Go ahead and get it. I thought from a strategic standpoint, defensively in particular, Vic Fangio threw it all out there. I mean, we talked about it last week. I said, if you have to put Brandon Graham or Milton Williams on the edges just to secure them up, they did that at times. They put 5 men down on the line at times. They put 6 men down on the line at times, and not like showing blitz. Like they were clearly established line defenders trying to take away that. Listen, it's always the old adage that the run sets up the pass. And you and I talked a little bit last week about how you can't be bad at both. You can't be bad at the pass and the run. You got to kind of pick your poison. Feels like Vic Fangio has said to himself, look, I think I've got enough talent on the back end that I can risk a little bit up front with my front seven. And Quinyon Mitchell leads the league in passes defended, and Reed Blankenship's already got 2 interceptions, and Slay had a play. CJ showed up in games. So it feels like that's what the philosophy is there. The thing I did like about the offensive side of the ball was holy tight ends. They came out in not 12 personnel, 13 personnel quite a few times in this game to try to shore up as much as they could in front of Jalen Hurts, whether that was for the ground game or the pass game. I thought was really important. Again, we can't have those turnovers, especially in the red zone.
Right.
Another tough interception for Jalen. I appreciate wanting to stick that ball in there like that. Devontae kind of gets bumped off his route a little bit, but and then of course we keep saying take the points. These decisions, they've already cost you once. And again, I want to reiterate, I'm fine with aggressive. I'm fine with wanting to go for it. I'm fine with all things. The analytics say 4th and 4 at a certain yard line, you got to go and get it. I understand those things. I don't hate that. It's reading the temperature of the game. It's understanding how much clock is left. It's knowing where you're putting your defense, what position they're in, what kind of game they're having. And in that moment, in that play, now there's been rumors that perhaps they lined up incorrectly. And so that is really what blew up that play. But even there on that play, if you get a first down, you're going to call your timeout because you need to. You only have one left.
Right.
You maybe get one shot at the end zone. And then that's it. And so if you get tackled in bounds from that one shot at the end zone, you get no points. It just felt like the obvious thing there was to take the 3. And this is a conversation that we kind of keep having, but just kind of your impressions on what happened right before halftime there.
Yeah, I didn't understand it either because, like you said, the main thing was time. So you're going to do this. You're going to get that yard or whatever it was, yard and a half, 2 yards on that 4th down play. And like you just said, you said it all right there. You're going to take another timeout. You have another shot. Secure the 3. You have one of the best kickers in the NFL. And it seems like I'm saying that every week too, that they're not using. You can't, and I disagree. Let's even go deeper into the game. So you have a chip shot from Jake Elliott for the most part, and then you ask him to kick a 60-yarder. I'm not putting any of that on Jake on that missed field goal either. There's nothing with that, but just the whole maybe that's a situation for, you punt the ball, you pin him deep. I'm not saying go for it in that situation. That's a good time to punt the ball and, pin the Saints deep into their own territory. We got a pretty good punter in man as well, but yeah, some of those decisions that Nick Sirianni made, and this is going on every week. We're talking about it. Maybe this is the week where things begin to make sense a little bit, and the play calling gets a little bit better. Not even the play calling, the decision making, gets a little bit better on Nick Sirianni's part. So, he got away with one there. Boy, just seeing that play, that 4th down call with Barkley running left, that I still see visions of that. That was one of the worst plays. And I think we heard the whole Lehigh Valley, Delaware Valley go, you've got to be kidding me.
And again, if you already called a timeout before that play, so you can't call another one.
Right.
You're handcuffed. Just a bit of a
no need
of a head scratching play. Yes, no need is the way to put that. And I love the faith in your offense to go and get it. I understand I think one of the things that needs to be discussed in these offensive meetings, in particular for maybe just for Nick Sirianni to know, just to write this number on a piece of paper. What's the number you think you're going to need to win this game? On Friday, you're sitting down, you're going over your first 15 plays. What's the number you think you're going to need to win this game? To me, against Atlanta, that number was 24 because we've seen Kirk Cousins can manufacture points. They were a better team than they put out against Pittsburgh.
Correct.
So to me, that number was 24. Last week, I feel like that number certainly would have been higher. Okay, so if you're going to tell me you wanted to be aggressive because you feel like all of a sudden the Saints might turn it on, start scoring a bunch of points, that's fine. But reading the game in that moment, where it was, close game, nobody running away with this thing, all of a sudden that thought that might have been 31, maybe you're talking, you're like, guys, 20 points might win this game. This might be a game where we need 20 to win it with the way our defense is playing. Just take the points, do those assessments and evaluations as the game goes along and see if you can make those adjustments. Young Bucks stepping up, man. It's a Cat Country 96 Birds recap. It's brought to you by Miller Lite, the official beer sponsor of the Philadelphia Eagles, and by our friends at Banko Beverage Company. Visit bankobeverage.com. Man, how good was it to see Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis be as disruptive as they were on the defensive line in this game. A lot of talk about Jalen Carter's game, highest graded PFF player at his position over the weekend. A lot of players who watched the film said, if you get this out of this guy every week, watch out. Just your assessment of the defensive tackle play and how important they were in the game.
I think it was huge. They showed up and they were dominant from the first snap. This is what we were waiting to see from the defensive line. I know Fletcher retired. I get all that. It was tough to lose Fletcher, but he was getting older too. He wasn't as quick as he was. So you can't just, they're not good without Fletcher. No, a lot of people are saying that, of course. But no, they are as good of a front without Fletcher. They just need to play together. They need to get everything going. And this was hopefully that breakout game. It seemed like there was always pressure. Did they rush the passer with every play? No, but it seemed like there was always a lot of pressure on Carr. And he's scrambling and doing what he had to do. He's not the greatest scrambler. We get that. And they were just on him. And, Carr had to know where they were. This reminded me of the old Eagles. And when I say old Eagles defense, I'm going back a year or two ago. That's what when you had, even Reddick on the outside and everything. But this reminded me of an old style, the Super Bowl run of the Eagles of a couple of years ago. The defensive line play is what I'm talking about. And, it was just refreshing to see, Crockett. It was nice to see the pressure. And the best thing about it was the consistency from the first snap to the end. They didn't just play well in the first quarter and then get tired, and then play well again in the third quarter after halftime when they were, rested. They played, really well the entire game. That was refreshing to see from the defensive line. Hopefully they do it again this week. I don't know why they couldn't. I just did their injury report this morning. I think Williams is the only guy on the injury report, and he's good to go for this week. So they're fresh, they're healthy, they're good to go.
If we can get that kind of Jalen Carter, that changes you from you want to be an okay above average defense to an elite defense in a moment. He's shown it before. Rams game comes to mind last season. Just disruptive. We've seen Jordan Davis make plays. The Buffalo game comes to mind and stuff like that. Yeah. If you can get consistent play from those two, man, is that just going to change the whole defense for this team all season long. To your point, they were in Derek Carr's lap. He throws that interception off his back foot to Reed Blankenship, trying to, because what do? You've got pressure in your face. You're trying to get rid of the football. To your point, even if it doesn't necessarily turn around in sacks, I think Vic Fangio is saying to himself, okay, we're good enough on the back end that if somebody's going to throw off their back foot, I got a pretty good chance that one of my guys is going to be the guy to make that play. Yep. So good stuff there. So we mentioned injuries have come up a couple of times here. Sure. No AJ Brown, no Devontae Smith. Mekhi Becton looks like he's going to be in there. Have to assume Lane Johnson's going to be out. A bit of a walking wounded scenario for Tampa Bay as well, coming off of their back-to-back games against Detroit and Denver. I'm curious what your expectations are. Who is the bell cow here on the offense? Who makes the plays on defense? And I'm curious to know what your score is going to be for Sunday. All
right. Well, I think there's a little bit of revenge playing in the Eagles' heads right now from the playoff game last year that I don't think they even showed up to that game, honestly. Going back to Tampa Bay, I'm going to say we were talking about this a little bit this morning. I think Tampa Bay might be focusing and keying on Barkley, which with the lack of the receiver core, I get that. And if you do that, that's fine. I think the key, I'm going to go Dotson. He has to have a good game on Sunday. I think Hurts is going to be eyeing up Dotson quite often. I think he has that possibility to, show us you can run those routes. Show us you can get open. And if he can catch a couple different balls and make him one of the key offensive players, I think he's going to need to be. I think they're going to be relying a lot on Dotson and, Goddard as well. But, they may even be double teaming Goddard this weekend, too, from his performance over the past weekend and what he's capable of doing, how he's been getting open. I think that's very huge. And I think, again, on defense, you got to go back with the defensive line. It starts from there. Your defensive line has a killer game. I mean, look what it did to the rest of the defense, with the pressure on the quarterback that we've been talking about. So I think the keys are, Dotson is my offensive key, and the defensive line is going to be my key on defense for the game. And this is a game, I'm going to say one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the NFL belongs to Tampa Bay. He's solid. He gets the job done. He's competitive every week. And for some reason, he's not getting the, hey, he's a pretty good quarterback, blah, blah, blah. But I think the Eagles better right now than they were last year to end the season? I think the answer is yes on that. They're going to show up to Tampa Bay, unlike last year. I think half of the problem last year is they didn't even show up to Tampa Bay playoff game. I think the Eagles can win this game. I think they can put up, 26 points. And I'm going to say the Eagles are going to win this 26-20 on Sunday. By the way, Crockett, 1 o'clock game, which is a beautiful thing again.
Yes.
The back-to-back 1 o'clocks are absolutely perfect. So the Eagles win this one 26-20.
And so it looks like also the weather could be a factor. It looks like things are moving out of Tampa Bay at this point.
Yeah.
So there hasn't been any indication that the game might change a time or place or anything of that nature. Yeah. So I'm going to agree with you on, I think if Jahan Dotson has a big play, I'm not even talking about a big game, has a big play,
Okay.
in this game, I think the Eagles have a really good opportunity to win it. the big thing for me is it's a Saquon Barkley game. If they're going to load up the box and do all those things, I need to know early that the Eagles are committed to running the football, that they are, you can't go 3 and out with 8 passes on those 9 plays.
Amen.
I need a strong commitment to the ground game. This is exactly why you brought this guy in here. You had success even going 13 personnel. I mentioned that earlier. You can throw little wrinkles in where you're just getting a little dump to Calcaterra or to Goddard or to Stahl or whoever it might be. So I fear Todd Bowles. So the Philadelphia Eagles just historically have not been great against Todd Bowles, whether that's been as a DC or a head coach. With that in mind, with all the injuries, with everything kind of getting into that mindset, I think the number in this game is 20. I think a Jahan Dotson big play might be the difference in the game.
Okay.
I don't know that they're going to get that big play from Jahan Dotson just because of how slim they are on the offensive side of the ball. There's still a question of how much of the play. I mean, credit to him that long pass to Goddard was all him. He said they worked on that in practice, talked about it pregame. He has 3 Saints run into each other just by doing a good mesh, and Dallas Goedert gets open. So it might have to be that kind of game again where they only get a couple of big chunk plays and have to cash them in.
That's fine.
I just don't know if you can catch that lightning in a bottle twice in a row. So I think if this game is in Philadelphia, I feel a little better about it.
Sure, yeah.
This game is in Tampa Bay. This game is against Todd Bowles. So I think I like Tampa more than I like Philly in this one, but would not be surprised if they won a game, similar to this past 19-16, some goofy kind of score.
Yeah.
That ultimately puts them over the top. But that's why they play the game, Sam Malone, to figure these things out.
Yeah, that's correct. And that's why, if you recall last week, I said, and unfortunately I said the Eagles need to go 1-1 in these next 2 games.
Yes.
So hopefully I'm wrong and we go 2-0. It will be. I did think that last week's game was going to be harder than this week's game.
Yes.
Looking at it going into last week. Now, again, last week was a very tough game, to be part of. So hopefully they prove me wrong and they go 2-0 and they come back on the bye week 3-1, which would be perfect.
I will say this. If you believe in the momentum, if you remember the Jake Elliott kick against New York, obviously a few seasons ago, early in the season, kind of not knowing who they are, if that Saquon run can prove to be their kind of pivot moment, if they can find a win against Tampa Bay and go into the bye week and get healthy, you come out Cleveland, New York, Cincinnati, and Jacksonville. So if you want to start really making some moves in the NFC, if you can find a way to win this game and beat a team that might be a playoff team in the NFC, and then start rolling after the bye week when you're healthy, if you can get to, we might be overshooting ourselves a little bit here, but if you can get to 6-1, 5-2, something like that would be, a really good start to the season. As you get midway through, you still have Dallas twice, you still have those games coming up on your schedule. So we'll see. Sam Malone, it's going to be a big one on Sunday in Tampa Bay. It is the Cat Country 96 Birds recap. It is brought to you by Miller Lite, the official beer sponsor of the Philadelphia Eagles, and by Banko Beverage Company. Visit bankobeverage.com. Sammy, go Birds.
Go Birds, Crockett.
Go Phils. Red October starting next weekend in the NLDS. So
absolutely,
lots of things to be excited about as a Philadelphia sports fan. But right now, we're talking Birds. This thing is the Cat Country 96 Birds recap. Sammy, enjoy the game, buddy.
Thank you, Crockett. You too. Go Birds.